Welcome back to Grit and Grow with Megan and Sarah. This episode is all about the fear of failure.
I find the beauty in commotion, swimming by the gale, miles away.
Welcome back to Grit and Grow with Megan and Sarah. I changed it up again. So today's episode is all about the fear of failure, which actually has a medical term. So this is actually this is not just a made up thing. This actually has a medical term, atachiphobia. So the atachiphobia is an intense and persistent fear of not achieving desired outcomes. It can manifest as anxiety, procrastination, and avoidance. And yes, we did look this up to make sure. The fear can stem from various sources, including past failures, low self-esteem, perfectionism, fear of judgment, and the fear of the unknown. Sarah, do you have this fear?
I feel called out. I feel attacked. Stop. You know what I found interesting though while you were reading that is the fear. Okay, so where this stems from, or so what this comes from, is the exact symptoms it causes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it's the biggest cycle of toxicity, and it's so crazy because I did not know this. I did not know this information, and that's why we're doing this podcast, is because I want to publicly talk about things that all of us are dealing with, and we didn't know it.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I know I called you out kind of, but I also know you quite well. So I kind of know that that is one of the issues that you have. And so therefore I have it too. So I mean, and it's different. And the thing is that everyone is different in how much it affects them. So there's some symptoms, which we're going to go over in a minute, but everyone is different in how it affects them. So for you, sometimes it can create some definite frozen feeling, right? And you know how the other day, you know how the other day we were talking about some of my issues because you called me out on a few things, and but the one thing you said was that I always find solutions, and that's my fear of failure will manifest temporarily. And then I've learned to say, okay, I'm giving myself this time to have it, and then I need to come up with solutions. And so therefore, like everyone is a different extent of how much it affects them, and everyone is going to have different ways of coping with it. And some people have not learned how to get past the fear and move forward. And that's kind of like why we're here today, is to help people recognize what they have, because a lot of people don't even realize what they're doing. And then the other part to it is give them action steps to help them on the path of conquering this fear. And it's conquering at the moment. It's not a constant conquering, because we all suffer through it, just like the imposter syndrome. We all suffer through it throughout our lives, right?
Yep. Different times it comes up and different ways it shows up. And so I think we've talked about some of the emotional ways that it shows up. The anxiety, the low self-esteem, the procrastination, the perfectionism, the fear of judgment, shame and guilt, hesitancy. Those are all like emotional symptoms that show up when this is something that you're dealing with. And again, these are all things that I deal with. Megan, you want to talk about the physical symptoms? Because I love you, lady, but I think that you're a physical symptom person.
I am. And as we were going through this and we were talking about it, and I was listing out the physical symptoms, I'm like, yep, I have this one. 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 The only one I don't have that I can figure out is the first one, which is increased heart rate. I don't think I have increased heart rate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that in the moment I might have it. Like yesterday or the other day when we were talking about things, and I was upset and frustrated, I probably had increased heart rate at that moment. However, the second one is difficulty concentrating, and I have a very hard time with focusing sometimes. Like I have my big computer now in front of me and I have like 40 different things up and I'm going do back and forth. I'm like, Meg, just do one thing. One thing, complete it and move on. But I'm like, no, I got to do multiple things. I'm like, do I have ADHD? Is that a problem? Do I actually have that? So, and then insomnia, how
All of the
many?
social media content right now are trying to tell you that you have ADHD. For some reason, all of my social media content is trying to tell me that I have autism. And I'm like, stop it. Just
Well,
stop.
and that comes
Sorry.
from that's and I'm having that too right now. And that's because you and I have been talking about my daughter and that there's an
Yeah.
autistic possibility with her. And there's also, she just got diagnosed with ADHD and DMDD. So the more we say it, like I call her Voldemorta in my house, and she listens to, I hate to say it, but they do listen because you can have nothing on except for her. And the next time you turn your
Yep.
phone on, there is autism spectrum or ADHD or DMDD. And I'm like, really? Can you stop listening to me? Do you work for the FBI or something? What the heck? But
Nope.
but yes,
Nope.
so I see a lot on ADHD now, and I'm like, oh wait, maybe I have that. So, and then insomnia. I know I have issues with insomnia. I recently started using some CBD to just help me kind of calm down and I get my brain to kind of relax at night. Um, and that comes with anxiety too. And then
Yep.
digestive issues. Ha 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 ha. Yes. Um, and then my favorite, because it's what I deal with on my other part of my business, which is muscle tension, keeps me working. When people are suffering from the fear of
Yep.
failure, they develop a great deal of muscle tension, and that is what keeps my massage business going, is that muscle tension. So, keep it up,
Yep.
guys.
Yep. A couple things I wanted to say about the physical symptoms is how you were saying like you have all of them except for you're not sure about the increased heart rate. You were just talking about, I think on the last podcast, starting to go to the gym, and I'm going to hold you accountable to that. Well, I love you, lady, but I am now also going to hold you accountable to tracking your heart rate. I think we can set like 3 different times of the day, like maybe first thing when you wake up, uh, pre and post workout, and then before you go to bed. That was 4. But like, just so that you know, because maybe you do have that as a symptom, and then maybe the work that we are going to do is going to create some impact on that. But you don't know the impact unless you're willing to collect data. And man, do I love data, and I love creating impact, and I love like realizing that the hard work you're putting in is really getting you somewhere. That's for me, that's my motivator.
Definitely. I have no problem. I guess I'll have to get one of those watches again because my watch stopped working, so I don't have anything to track my heart rate right now, or my sleep habits. But, I know like in
Yeah.
general, I don't feel like an excessive heart rate. And being in massage, it's part of what I do is I check in with my body on a regular basis to see how I'm feeling, which recently has been miserable. So, but that doesn't mean that I'm not so used to it that I just don't notice it any longer. Does that make sense? Like, so I could have it and not know.
You have conditioned yourself to feeling like crap, as I have conditioned myself to feeling like crap. I have already had to eat antacids twice today, and it's only 12:45 here on the West Coast. And I was like, this is why I've been kind of talking about September. I'm going to clean up my diet, and I'm going to really start to feel better, because I know I'm doing it to myself, and yet I do the same thing to myself every single day.
Yep.
And I can't wait for you to tell me what syndrome or barrier that's called. Self-sabotage. I think that's self-sabotage.
It might be. Self-sabotage is like, okay, so um we're going off topic, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because it came up. So self-sabotage,
I
I've
digress.
actually been talking to a client of mine about this recently and without actually using the wording because I don't want her to think I'm
Mhm.
labeling. But self-sabotage, my dad was awesome at this. He was like A-rated self-sabotager. So like he went and lost
Right.
like I think it was like 140 pounds for my sister's wedding. The man looked awesome. He looked wonderful. My mom could dance with him and not be like this because his stomach, all his weight's in his stomach. So she had to be like that. She was so happy she could dance
Yep.
with him nice and close at my sister's wedding. The day after the wedding, my dad sabotaged himself. He started eating anything and everything he wanted. He's like, I don't know why I gained all this weight back and more. Well, because you're self-sabotaging. So you think that you shouldn't succeed, which is part of that fear of failure. You're afraid you're not going to succeed.
Yep.
So then you do things and it can be subconsciously. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're saying, oh, I'm gonna make sure that I don't do this task or this task because that's gonna help me succeed. Now, I don't want to succeed. You're literally doing this self-consciously. So you're actually creating that fear of that fear of failure is actually creating a self-sabotage within you to make it so that you won't succeed. So you can say to yourself, you know what? You were right. I told you you weren't going to succeed. You I knew it. You've done it before. You're never going to succeed at this. How many of us have said that to ourselves once in our lives? Right? So,
That one almost made me cry because I could hear my gremlin. You took on the voice of my gremlin.
oh shit,
And
I
I
don't want
almost
to be
wanted to
a
like argue
voice.
back and be like, I am going to succeed this time. I am going to succeed. Remember, I'm different. I sent follow-up messages after we got done recording. Okay. Whew. Got
And we
carried.
all do it. It's not self-sabotage. It's the thing is that a lot of this is being mindful of yourself. And you know how I said at the beginning of this with the physical that I do check in with myself physically throughout the day, because of being in massage and doing what I know my body,
Mhm.
you know, and a lot of it is being mindful of where
Yeah.
you are mentally, where your mindset is, and what you are doing in that moment to sabotage yourself. And I'm not saying I'm 100% perfect because yesterday was a complete self-sabotage day. Like I sat in front of my computer and I literally messed up my Facebook, which I'm still trying to figure out what I did. But that was I'm pissed off at the world right now. So I'm going to get on. I want to make some progress here. I want to do something. So you know what? I'm going to do this because I really want to be able to do this. And so therefore I'm going to do this. And I literally sabotaged myself. And without even realizing it, I did it. So it's not always do we know what we're doing, but it's almost like it's a part of the fear of failure. And it's not put in any of the definitions that I read or any of the information that I have, but it really is part of the fear of failure because the fear of failure is not a symptom, it's an outcome of the fear of failure. So you're so afraid to succeed that you're almost willing to sabotage yourself from succeeding just to prove yourself right.
Yep. I believe this is who I am, and therefore, anytime I start to gain anything above that, I'm gonna sabotage myself and put myself right back there.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons that I choose to show up for coaching, and I choose to show up for counseling, and I choose to show up for the hard work, even though I don't want to, and I get miffed about it. I get pissy about it when I have to do the work, but I know that I need to do the work because I want more than I have ever had. And I don't mean physical things. I mean um, mental and emotional freedom. I exist in fear. I spend my time thinking about the next bad thing that could happen unless I get myself in check, unless I do the work. And it's really great when I've been doing the work consistently, and so that I don't have to like constantly do the work. It's just the work is natural. It becomes, I don't know, it's like I'm floating all the time instead of sinking and trying to swim out of it. And so I'm excited that we've committed back to a schedule of doing the work for me so that I can feel like my real self again.
By the way, we do need to schedule this week's thing, and we didn't schedule that, but yeah, we need to schedule that. Um, however, you have access to my schedule, so have at it. But
Book yourself.
book yourself. You're good. You know how to do it. So the fear of failure is a really hard one because it does create all of this, the perfectionism. And I have to laugh because we started talking about one of your clients in the last episode, and I have to laugh because this, as I was doing some of the research and getting all the information for this podcast, and you're talking to me about your client and how you're trying to get her through that, I'm sitting there going, that is procrastination, that is fear of failure, that is perfectionism. She wants everything perfect before she's willing to move forward. One of my mentors used to tell me, imperfect action is better than no action, right? So I might do things imperfectly, but I'm still moving forward. And so I try to do that. Now I see you smiling because I know I'm not great at that. I do tend to want things, oh my God, I want the back office to be perfect. I want this to be, and before I move forward. And I do know that, but I am trying to stop that. But imperfect action is better than nothing. So don't get to a point in which you're so worried about the perfection of it that you're not willing to take action to help yourself.
Right.
So, what about some action steps, Sarah?
All right. So some of the action steps that you can take if you are finding that you are self-sabotaging is to set realistic goals. Instead of saying, I'm gonna make $1,000 this week, break that down into much smaller achievable goals. So if you're gonna work 5 days this week and you want to make $1,000 in sales in your week, then break that down and that's only $200 in sales a week. Like, be real with yourself.
Definitely. Definitely. What's the next one?
Visualize success. So imagine yourself overcoming challenges and achieving your goals. And I'm really hoping that we keep time at the end of this podcast for Meg to go ahead and lead us through a visualization exercise, because getting out of fear, getting out of self-sabotage means that you have to spend the time to imagine that. You have to spend the time with your eyes closed, imagining what you want looks like. And as you go through this process, you will begin building resilience. You'll develop coping mechanisms to handle setbacks, kind of like Megan and I have found each other, kind of like I have a list of action steps that I'm going to take today, and I have all sorts of really fun things that I use to get myself out of my frozen state. Like, I have rocks, I have essential oils, I have my favorite tea. So I use texture things, I use all of my senses when I am pushing through. I covered another one. I seek support. Friends, family members, mentors. Talk to them about what's stopping you. Talk to them about your fear of failure. And I do want to kind of add on to this one is to make sure they're a safe person for you. If this is someone who's only going to build those fears, if this is someone who's going to feed your gremlin and not your cheerleader, that's not someone to seek support from.
That's a great place to say you can seek support from coaches like us, like they can help you through it. And we're basically your cheerleaders. We're basically going to be here to cheer you on and to help you work on that so that you do succeed. Our goal is to help you succeed. So if you can't find someone in your life that is gonna like kind of be there for you, and even if what they do, I mean, like I have family and friends that love me and they support me, but sometimes I need someone outside of that group to kind of talk to about what's going on, because I need someone away from the situation that can just give me non-biased information or non-biased cheerleading.
Right, right.
What's the next one? This is a good one. You want to cover it? No.
No, go ahead. I did a bunch in a row.
Okay. Learn from mistakes. So, I don't want to say never. I almost never have sat there and thought of my mistakes as failures, because mistakes are just a learning process. So if I do something and it doesn't work, that doesn't mean I quit. That just means I look at what I've done and change it. So failures aren't necessarily failures or mistakes. Mistakes are are stepping stones to your success. You have to learn what works for you and what doesn't. And sometimes what works for like Sarah isn't going to work for me. And what works for me isn't going to work for Sarah. So it's all about stepping stones, and mistakes are going to happen. It's a natural part of life. So you have to kind of make that decision that a mistake is not a failure unless you give up at that point. Then it's a failure. But if you make a mistake and you say, okay, can I change? Now you're learning. Now you're growing as a human being, and you're growing in your business, and you're growing in your life, because you're not willing to accept defeat. And the last one is practice self-compassion. Sarah, you're always on. I'm not good at this. Sarah, you're always on me about this. And I know it. I know it, but I have a habit of I was born and raised Catholic, and I was born and raised Irish, and I was born and raised in New York. And you put all those three things together, and it creates a great deal of self-guilt. So I am very good at making myself the evil one in every single situation that I go through. Like, I'm the one that messed everything up. So self-compassion is saying, you know what? Yeah, I made a mistake, but I'm learning from it. I'm growing from it. And so therefore I can move forward in my life. And it's not about saying, oh, I made this horrible mistake, I suck, and like, which I'm really good at. And say, creating a place for yourself to say, okay, well, mistakes happen. What can I do to solve the problem? And I do that, but not at first. My first initial reaction is I'm going to blame myself and make myself feel horrible. And then I say later, okay, now how do I solve the problem that I've created? Now, how do I solve that problem and understand that this was a mistake and I cannot let it defeat me? It just takes me a little bit of time to do that sometimes.
You are so great at coaching yourself. Like, you are so great at it. And so I love to hear you tell these stories, because I was like, you do that. Yes, you do that. Yep, you do that. So it's really cool to like put words to the actions that I've been watching you take now for years. The way that you are is exactly the way we're detailing. And so it's really cool.
I've always, it comes down to years ago, and I don't want to go off on top of the topic, but years ago, I had a friend of mine that blamed her family for everything that happened in her life. And she was only in high school, but it was her parents' fault for everything. Her boyfriend cheated on her. Somehow it was her parents' fault. And so I went to vacation with them one time. I had just spent a year in college. I went to vacation with them, and she's sitting there blaming her mother on the beach. She's sitting there going, I did to her mom. And her mom looked at me and goes, Megan, do you blame your family for everything? And I looked at her and I said, well, I used to. And then I grew up and I realized that I have to take accountability for my own life. And that can be my mistakes and my successes. So I love my family and they did the best they could. So now I have to do the best I can for myself and for my family. And the only way I can do that is by accepting and acknowledging my accountability for my mistakes, but also my successes.
Yep. Yep. When we learn to be responsible for ourselves in all things, it's incredibly transformative. And yeah, it's incredibly transformative.
And it's not easy. I mean, there's times where I'd love to blame other people for, things that happen. And I'd love to say, well, I'd love to stay in the self-pity. My mom calls it the pity party moment in my life. And I would love to stay there and just not take responsibility. But where am I going to go if I stay in that spot? Like, if I stay in the pity party and I stay in oh, it's this person's fault, my life is so messed up, which I hear a lot from my sister. And if I went there all the time and I never got out of that, then where would I be in my life?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just a matter of time taking accountability
And sometimes I
moving
wonder,
forward.
like, Yeah, I get caught up in where would I be if I had done this mindset work as a young adult in my early 20s. And I don't know if we've taken a moment to do like the about me things, but a couple things about Sarah is I'm a 42-year-old mom of six children. My oldest is 25, my youngest is 8. My second youngest was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in January. My youngest is having her tonsils removed tomorrow. And so this has been one of the years where I thought I was going to be wildly focused on my career. And instead, I've shifted my focus to being available care provider for my kiddos. And it's been such a gift to lean into my strengths. Um, and at the same time, I have so much more work to do.
But being so at one point in my life when I was in massage school, they they basically they said, sometimes because people were asking, because in massage school it's amazing the transformation that can happen in your mindset. And I didn't even think about that when I
Yep.
joined. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to learn how to do massage. I love doing this. I love helping people. I want to make changes in people's lives. And the biggest change that I saw was myself. And the biggest
Yep.
change I saw was my mindset and how I looked at life. And one of the things people said to me, when the teacher said to me, I was like, why didn't I understand any of this ahead of time, like before now? Why did I not understand my anger was just bringing me down? Why didn't I understand that my lack of being able to forgive others is causing more issues for me than it is for others? And why is it that I can't move past some of the crap that's happened in my life and until now? And they said, Meg, they said, when you're ready for it, it'll come to you. When you're ready for it, you will acknowledge it and you'll be able to move forward. And so a lot of times I've heard things people say, well, why are you like this and I can't seem, and a lot of times it's just I was ready to accept it. I was ready to learn it. I was ready for that
Yep.
transformation in that moment. I was ready to do the work. You know, I not to get completely off topic here because we're talking about fear of failure, but I want to talk. I told you the other day about, I showed you a video that just hit home for me. You remember the video? And I wish I had thought about
Yep.
this, but
Hmm.
so this woman was explaining transformation and how transformation changes you and what you go through. And massage school was that time for me. Massage school was really that time. And I'm not perfect and there's a lot that I need to work on, but when I went to massage school, I was angry, I was resentful, I was ice princess, they called me. I had a lot of emotional baggage at that moment in my life. Everything I'd been through, the stuff I'd been through. I moved down to Florida with knowing no one. So the way this video went was this woman had this container and she put all this stuff in, like balls and stickers and all that stuff. She said, this is all your negative. This is all, and you're going through transformation. And it hit home for me because as she filled it up with the water, which was the transformation, this is where most people stop. And I'm going to do a video on this because I want to do a video on this because it means so much to me. Um, this is where most people stop. And it was like halfway. And there's still all this stuff in there, but it's all coming to the surface now. And that's what massage school did for me. It brought so much up that I
Yep.
didn't even realize was there. And I was
Yep.
just angry and I was just resentful and I was an ice
Yep.
princess and no one could get through my wall of bitch. And I'm going to say it exactly the way I was, the wall of bitch,
Yep.
and no one could get through it.
Yep.
And so then I went to in massage school, I'm going through this process and I'm learning that I can only help those if I have an open heart and an open mind myself. So I started and I had to go through all of this pain and all this frustration. And we're talking about crying and we're talking about nights where I'm like, I can't do this. I'm done. I wanted to do massage. I didn't want to do this to myself. And I got through it. And there's still some stuff that got stuck down there and it's coming up little by little. And I always joke around that I outran my shadows. But I it's the 90% of my transformation, Sarah. If you had seen me before massage school, you wouldn't recognize who I am now because you would never have believed I
Right.
could be who I am now because at that point in my life, I was so full of all that negative and all of that. And I went to massage school to help people because that's what I wanted to do, but I can't help people if I'm in that negative space. And so they saw
Right.
that and they showed me that. And it was like the work was hard, but I got through it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that people don't get started with the transformation. People don't get started healing because they hear this. And I'm excited for you to do that video as well, because it makes me think of how many times I have shied away from doing the work because I have started to do the work and it gets messier and your life gets messier and your emotions get messier. And you're like, this was supposed to be helping me and I do not feel helped. And that's just part of the process. And I really think that that's why this has become so important to us. This is why we're being consistent with it. This is why we're putting this out there, is because doing the work will get you to the lifestyle that you want. Doing the work will get you to the version of yourself that you want. But you're going to have to trudge through the mud to get there. And Megan and I would like to be with you as you go through that journey, because we have been there for each other and we have made it to a place where we are very happy with our lives. We are very capable of showing up for our children and our businesses and our partners and feeling good about it because we have done this hard work. And that's what we're putting out there. We're putting out there that, doing the hard work is something that you can do, and we're here to support you through it. Not only the through it, but the step-by-step direction of it, because it's important to take focused action. I don't want people to think that they just need to be busy. I don't want people to think that they just need to be, doing something all the time. That's not at all what this is about. And that's not at all what we're teaching and coaching to. But yeah, Earl, I'm excited for this. I'm excited. All right. Did we cover all of our points?
I think so. I went off topic completely, but
Awesome.
the fear of failure, the fear of failure is multifaceted, and that's the problem. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could probably do about 5 podcasts just on fear of failure, and it still wouldn't touch
Right.
a lot of it. So this is the first in a section of barrier files. So these are different barriers, and we're not going to do 5 on fear of failure because that's more of it's going to end up being a more one-to-one because each person's fear of failure comes up differently. But the biggest thing is don't give up on self-development. It is not easy, but it's not easy because you become a different person and you become a more present person in your life and a happier person in your life. And don't be afraid of failing, making mistakes during that self-development and during the process, because in the end, that's what life is. It's just a bunch of mistakes that we've learned from and that we've grown from.
It's, are you willing to continue? Do your mistakes make you quit? If you quit, then you failed.
Yep.
If you have
And
not,
then
you have
then you're doing the self-fulfilling
all right.
prophecy. Okay, so I know you wanted me to do a meditation thing. So I have
We don't have time on
we don't
this
have
one
time?
now.
No, okay. So
No, we'll have to record it and include it.
okay, not a problem. If anyone, as our followers come on, if you want meditations, I can provide videos of meditation, especially if you sign up for our program. I can do a personalized meditation just for you that's specifically to the thing you're going through at that moment. So that's kind of like something.
Ooh, I want one.
Okay, so you and I will talk about that one. But I'll record it and I will add it into,
I'm excited.
I'll record a meditation on fear of failure and put it in to the podcast as well. That'll just be a voice with some music and the actual thing.
From Joey. Do I need to pick up on the way home?
Awesome. Let's go ahead and end this recording.
That's my Voldemorta. We can talk to each other through that sometimes. But it did remind me, talk about kids and talking about being the present mother. I have medication to go get and parts of dinner that I need to go get. So we're gonna say goodbye. This is our fear of failure, the barriers files Fear of Failure through Great and Grow with Sarah, Megan and Sarah. And I'm going to change it up every time because I feel like it. And we will talk soon. We will do another recording soon. And we hope you guys all have a wonderful day and be at peace and know that you're here. If you're here listening to us, we will help you. Bye.
miles away.
Welcome back to Gray and Grow. Today's episode is the empowerment of action plans. Welcome, and we love having you.
Find the